The space station hung in the dark void like a metal flower. Its lights blinked slowly against the black of space. This was neutral ground, a place where enemies could meet and talk. Ambassador Dai-Ho Kim walked through the cold corridors toward the meeting room. His footsteps echoed in the empty halls. 3 years of war had brought them to this moment. 3 years of battles, losses, and retreats. The human fleet was down to just a few ships hiding in Earth's solar system. At least that's what everyone believed. Dai-Ho entered the large meeting room. The alien delegates were already there, sitting around a huge round table. Their different shapes and colors made the room look like a strange zoo. The Vextari Prime. Minister Thokran was the biggest. His blue skin shined under the lights and his forearms moved as he talked to the others. Next to him sat Admiral Kelnix from the Zephyrian Empire. His long neck curved like a snake and his eyes were cold and calculating. "Ah, the humans finally arrive," Thokran said with a laugh that sounded like grinding metal. "We were starting to think you had run away again." The other aliens laughed too. They had been winning this war for 3 years. They had pushed the humans back to their home system. They had destroyed most of the human fleet. Now they would finish what they started. Dai-Ho sat down without speaking. Behind him, Ji-Woo Park took her place at the back of the room. She was young for a military officer, but her eyes were sharp and angry. She watched the aliens with hate, burning inside her chest. "Let us not waste time," Admiral Kelnick said. His voice was smooth like oil on water. "You know why we are here. You know what we want." Thokran stood up and activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air above the table. Cities, military bases, and space docks floated, like ghosts between them. "These are our terms," Thokran announced. "Complete surrender of all human military forces. Immediate evacuation of all orbital defenses around Earth. Relocation of human population to designated worlds under our control." The images changed to show barren planets with small settlements. Prison worlds, Ji-Woo thought. They want to put humans in cages. "Your military will be disbanded," Admiral Kelnix continued. "Your weapons destroyed. Your technology given to us for study. You will become a protected species under coalition care." Protected like animals in a zoo, Dai-Ho knew. He had seen this before with other species that had fought the coalition and lost. The Kalari people now lived on 3 small moons, making simple tools and growing basic crops. The proud Marvin warriors were scattered across mining colonies. Their great ships melted down for scrap metal. "And if we refuse?" Dai-Ho asked quietly. The room fell silent. Thokran's laugh died in his throat. Admiral Kelnix leaned forward, his cold eyes focusing on the human ambassador. "Then we will take what we want anyway," Thokran said. "But there will be nothing left to protect, no humans left to relocate. Do you understand?" They were talking about genocide, the complete destruction of humanity. Ji-Woo's hands clenched into fists behind her back. Captain Hyun-Soo Lee, who commanded the human escort ship Soul's Pride, stood at the back wall. His face showed no emotion, but his hand moved to touch a small device on his belt. "You have fought well for primitives," Admiral Kelnick said with false kindness in his voice. "Your weapons are crude, your tactics simple, but you showed courage. We respect that. This is why we offer you survival instead of extinction." Dai-Ho looked around the table at the alien faces. Some looked eager for his answer. Others seemed bored, as if this meeting was just a formality. They all believed the same thing, that humanity was beaten, broken, and desperate. "We need time to consider your offer," Dai-Ho said. "Time?" Thokran roared. "You have no time. Your fleet is destroyed. Your colonies are ash. What is there to consider?" One of the smaller aliens, a Rigelian trade minister, spoke up. "Perhaps we should give them a few hours to discuss among themselves. It is a big decision." "It is no decision at all," Admiral Kelnick said coldly. "They will accept, or they will die. But very well. 1 hour. Then we want your answer." The alien delegates filed out of the room, talking among themselves. Some were laughing. Others were already discussing how to divide up human territory and resources. When they were alone, Jiwoo moved closer to Daeho. Sir, we can't seriously be considering this? Daeho smiled for the first time since the meeting began. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man holding a secret. Consider it? No, Lieutenant Park. We are not considering anything. He stood up and straightened his uniform. Captain Lee, please send a message to General Choi. Tell her the coalition has shown their true face. Captain Lee nodded and spoke quietly into his communication device. Message sent, sir. What are you doing? Jiwoo whispered. What we should have done years ago, Daeho replied. He walked to the door, then stopped and turned back to look at the empty meeting room. They want to know our answer? Then they will have it. The hour passed slowly. The alien delegates returned looking confident and pleased with themselves. They took their seats around the table and waited for the humans to crawl and beg for mercy. Daeho stood up. The room became quiet. Honored representatives of the Galactic Coalition, he began in a clear, strong voice. We have considered your generous offer very carefully. Thakran leaned back in his chair, already celebrating victory in his mind. And our answer is this, Daeho continued. Thank you for clarifying your true intentions toward the human species. Thank you for making your goals perfectly clear. And thank you for removing any doubt about what kind of future you planned for us. The aliens looked confused. This was not the desperate acceptance they expected. We formally withdraw from these negotiations, Daeho announced. We reject your terms, we reject your authority, and we reject your assumption that this war is over. The room exploded in noise. Aliens jumped to their feet, shouting and demanding explanations, but Daeho was already walking toward the door, with Jiwoo and Captain Lee following behind him. You are making a mistake, Thakran roared. We will destroy you all. Daeho stopped at the door and looked back one last time. You are welcome to try. The human delegation left the meeting room without another word. Behind them, the alien representatives stood in shocked silence, trying to understand what had just happened. The humans were supposed to surrender, they were supposed to beg for mercy. Instead, they had just declared war on the entire Galactic Coalition, and they were smiling. 6 months before the failed peace talks, General Sora Choi sat in a secret room deep inside a mountain on Earth. The room had no windows and thick walls that blocked all signals from going in or out. Around a long table sat the most important people in human space. They think they are winning, General Choi said quietly. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. Every battle we lose makes them more confident. Every ship we sacrifice makes them believe we are getting weaker. Admiral Yujin Nam leaned forward. The losses are real, General. Good people are dying out there. I know, General Choi replied. Every name is burned into my memory, but their deaths are not meaningless. Each battle gives us something more valuable than victory. It gives us knowledge. Dr. Min Ho Yoon, head of human intelligence, activated a holographic display. Images of alien ships filled the air above the table. We have detailed scans of every coalition ship type. We know their weapons, their shields, their weak points. We know how they think, how they fight, how they make decisions. Captain Hyun-Soo Lee, who would later escort Ambassador Kim to the peace talks, studied the images carefully. This intelligence came at a high price. Freedom always does, General Choi said. But now we know something the coalition does not. We know exactly what they are planning for humanity. The images changed to show intercepted communications and captured documents, plans for human relocation camps, designs for work colonies, lists of humans selected for genetic experiments. And at the bottom of every document, the same conclusion: total control of the human species. They never intended to let us live as free beings, Dr. Yoon explained. Every negotiation, every ceasefire, every offer of peace was just a way to make us surrender without fighting. They want us as slaves or experiments. Nothing more. Engineer Boram Ko stood up from her chair. She was small and quiet, but when she spoke, everyone listened. Show them the shipyard reports. New images appeared. Massive construction projects in the darkness beyond Pluto. Huge ships taking shape in the cold void of the outer solar system. Ships like nothing humanity had ever built before. "We have been busy while losing the war," Boram said with pride in her voice. "Every piece of coalition technology we captured, every weapon we studied, every engine we took apart, we improved it, made it better, made it human." Admiral Nam whistled softly. "How many ships?" "Enough," General Choi answered. "More than enough." The room fell quiet as everyone stared at the secret fleet. These were not the simple human ships the coalition had been fighting. These were weapons of revenge built from 3 years of careful study and burning anger. "The coalition thinks human technology is primitive," Dr. Yoon continued. "They see our simple weapons and basic tactics and believe we are children playing at war. They have no idea what we can do when we stop holding back." "Holding back, Captain?" Lee asked. General Choi smiled grimly. "Every battle we fought, we used older weapons and simple strategies. We let them capture our technology so they would think they understood us. We let them win so they would become overconfident and careless." Well, truth was harder to accept than anyone wanted to admit. For 3 years, humanity had been fighting with one hand tied behind their back. They had sacrificed ships, bases, and colonies to maintain the illusion of weakness, all so the coalition would reveal their true plans. "Strategic withdrawal protocol," Admiral Nam said slowly. "That's what we've been doing. Not retreating in defeat, but pulling back to draw them in." "Exactly," General Choi confirmed. "And now they are spread across half the galaxy far from their support bases, convinced they are hunting the last few human ships. They have no idea we have been watching their every move." Boram activated another display. This one showed coalition fleet positions throughout space. Every ship, every base, every supply line was marked and tracked. "We know where they are, what they are carrying, where they are going. They might as well be sending us their battle plans." "How?" Captain Lee asked. Dr. Yoon grinned. "Every ship they captured had hidden transmitters. Every base they took had secret monitoring devices. Every human prisoner they interrogated was actually one of our intelligence officers, feeding them false information while gathering real intelligence." The scope of the deception was breathtaking. For 3 years, humanity had been playing the greatest trick in galactic history. They had convinced the most powerful military alliance in known space that they were primitive, desperate, and defeated. "The aliens study war like a science," General Choi explained. "They have rules and theories and predictable patterns, but humans understand something they do not. Sometimes you have to lose battles to win the war." Admiral Nam looked at the fleet images again. "When do we reveal the truth?" "Soon," General Choi replied. "Let them offer us their surrender terms. Let them show the galaxy exactly what they plan to do to us. Then when everyone knows what kind of monsters we are dealing with, we strike." Engineer Boram brought up technical specifications for the new human weapons. Energy beams that could cut through coalition shields like paper. Missiles that could track targets through hyperspace. Armor that absorbed enemy fire and converted it to power. "We took everything they had and made it better," she said proudly. "Human creativity combined with alien technology. They gave us the tools to defeat them." "What about their numbers?" Captain Lee asked. "They still have more ships than we do, General." Choi's smile became dangerous. "Numbers don't matter when the enemy doesn't know they are in a fight until it's too late. By the time they realize what's happening, half their fleet will be destroyed and the other half will be cut off from support." Dr. Yoon showed them communication intercepts from Coalition Command. The alien leaders were already planning victory celebrations. They were dividing up human territory and arguing over who would get the best colonies. They had no idea that their prey was about to become their hunter. "They think this war is over," Admiral Nam said. "It is," General Choi agreed, "just not the way they expected." The meeting continued for hours as they refined their plans. Every detail was checked and double-checked. Every possible coalition response was anticipated and countered. When they finally finished, the sun was rising over the mountains outside. "One more thing," General Choi said as the others prepared to leave. When we begin the counterattack, there will be no mercy for those who planned genocide. The coalition leadership wanted to destroy humanity. Now they will learn what destruction really means. She looked around the room at the faces of humanity's secret leaders. We gave them every chance to show honor. We offered peace, compromise, and coexistence. They chose slavery and death instead. Now they will face the consequences of that choice. As the meeting broke up, each person carried the weight of humanity's future on their shoulders. In a few months, Ambassador Dae-ho Kim would walk out of peace talks and change the course of galactic history. The coalition would learn that their greatest victory was actually their greatest mistake. The humans had been patient. They had endured losses and humiliation. They had let their enemies think they were weak and broken. Soon, the galaxy would learn that patience and apparent weakness could be the most dangerous weapons of all. The real war was about to begin. 24 hours had passed since Ambassador Dae-ho Kim walked out of the peace talks. The alien news networks were calling it the final act of a desperate species. Coalition military leaders were already planning the final assault on Earth. None of them noticed the shadows moving in deep space. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun-jang stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Busan Thunder. Around him in the darkness, hundreds of human ships waited in perfect formation. These were not the simple vessels the coalition had been fighting. These were weapons built from 3 years of captured technology and burning anger. All fleets. "Report ready, Admiral," his communications officer announced. Admiral Jang nodded slowly. For 3 years he had watched coalition forces destroy human colonies and kill innocent people. For 3 years he had been forced to retreat and hide while following General Choi's orders. Those days of running were over. "Signal all ships," he commanded. "Operation Stormbreak is now active. Show them what humans can really do." Across the galaxy, human fleets dropped out of stealth mode and appeared like ghosts becoming real. The coalition forces, spread thin across their conquered territory, suddenly found themselves surrounded by enemies they thought were extinct. Captain Yoon-ji Lim commanded the dreadnought Incheon Vengeance as it emerged from hyperspace above the Yao Vextari homeworld. The orbital defense platforms around the planet had been built to stop human ships, the old simple human ships that the coalition had been fighting. "Target the command platform first," Captain Lim ordered. Her weapons officer smiled as he locked onto the massive station that controlled the planet's defenses. The Incheon Vengeance fired a single beam of pure energy. The beam cut through the platform's shields like they weren't even there, then sliced the entire structure in half. Explosions lit up the space around the planet as debris scattered in all directions. "Impossible!" screamed the Vextari defense commander over the communication channels. "Human weapons cannot penetrate our shields." "Our old weapons couldn't," Captain Lim replied calmly. "These are new." The human fleet tore through the orbital defenses like a hurricane. Ships that had taken weeks to destroy single human vessels were now being cut apart in seconds. The Vextari fleet tried to respond, but their weapons bounced harmlessly off the new human armor. On the planet below, Prime Minister Thakran watched his mighty defenses crumble. Just yesterday, he had been offering humans the choice between slavery and death. Now his homeworld was under attack by forces beyond his imagination. "How is this possible?" he roared at his military advisors. "They had no ships, no weapons. We destroyed their fleet." His intelligence chief looked at the battle reports with growing horror. "Sir, these are not the ships we fought before. These are completely different designs, more advanced than anything in our databases." Thokran's forearms trembled with rage and fear. Then where did they come from? Across space, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Coalition fleets that had seemed unstoppable suddenly found themselves outgunned and surrounded. The humans they had been hunting for 3 years had become the hunters. Commander Tae Young-on led a boarding party onto the coalition command ship Eternal Glory. His soldiers moved through the corridors like shadows, their new armor making them nearly invisible to alien sensors. They reached the bridge before the crew even knew they were aboard. "Surrender your ship," Commander An announced as his troops surrounded the alien officers. "Resist and die." The ship's captain, a proud Zephyrian admiral named Veltar, looked at the human soldiers with disbelief. "You are supposed to be extinct." "Reports of our death were greatly exaggerated," An replied. He gestured to his communications specialist. "Download everything. Fleet positions, supply routes, command codes. I want to know where every coalition ship in this sector is hiding." Within minutes, the human forces had complete intelligence on coalition operations across 3 star systems. The information was immediately transmitted to all human fleets, allowing them to strike with perfect coordination. Admiral Veltar watched his life's work being torn apart by the species he had helped to hunt. "How?" he whispered. "We had you beaten. Your technology was primitive. Your tactics were simple." Commander An looked at the alien officer with something that might have been pity. "You saw what we wanted you to see. Every battle we lost taught us more about you. Every ship you captured had hidden devices recording your capabilities. Every prisoner you took was actually gathering intelligence." The truth hit Veltar like a physical blow. The entire war was a deception. "Not the entire war," An corrected. "The deaths were real, the losses were real, but we chose those losses carefully to learn what we needed to learn. Now we use that knowledge." On Earth, President Haiwan Seo addressed the human population for the first time since the war began. Her image was broadcast to every human settlement, every colony, every ship in space. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice steady and strong. "For 3 years you have watched our enemies drive us back. You have seen our colonies burned and our ships destroyed. You have wondered if we could survive as a free species. Around the globe, humans stopped what they were doing to listen. In hidden bunkers and underground cities, in the secret shipyards beyond Pluto, people gathered around screens to hear their leaders' words. Today I can tell you the truth," President Seo continued. "Everything you saw was part of a plan. Every retreat was calculated. Every loss was chosen. We allowed our enemies to believe they were winning while we prepared for this moment." The broadcast switched to images of the human counterattack. Coalition ships burning in space. Alien fleets in full retreat. Orbital stations torn apart by weapons the enemy had never seen before. "The coalition planned to enslave us," President Seo said, her voice growing harder. "They plan to scatter our people across prison worlds and use us as test subjects for their experiments. They never intended to let us live as free beings." The images changed to show captured coalition documents, plans for human camps, lists of experiments to be performed, death quotas for population control. The galaxy saw for the first time exactly what the coalition had planned for humanity. "But we are not slaves," President Seo declared. "We are not victims. We are humans, and we bow to no one." The broadcast reached every inhabited world in coalition space. Alien populations, who had been told the war was a simple police action against primitives, suddenly learned the truth. Their leaders had planned genocide, and now they were paying the price. Admiral Eugene Nam led a fleet to the Coalition's military headquarters at Nexus Prime. The massive space station had been the nerve center of the war against humanity. From here, alien commanders had coordinated the attacks that destroyed human colonies and killed millions of innocent people. "Jam all their communications," Admiral Nam ordered. "I want them isolated and blind." The human ships surrounded the station like wolves circling prey. Every escape route was blocked. Every defensive weapon was targeted and destroyed. The Coalition's military leadership was trapped with no way to call for help. "This is Admiral Eugene Nam of the Human Defense Force," she broadcast to the station. "You plan to exterminate my species. You turned our colonies into graveyards and our people into refugees. Now you will answer for your crimes." Inside the station, Coalition leaders ran through corridors in panic. The species that controlled half the galaxy were reduced to frightened animals, searching for places to hide from human justice. The war had turned completely around in just one day. The Coalition forces that had seemed unstoppable were now scattered and broken. Their leaders were dead or captured. Their fleets were burning wrecks floating in space. The aliens had thought they were fighting primitives with simple weapons and basic tactics. Instead, they had walked into a trap that had been 3 years in the making. Humanity had endured losses and humiliation to lure their enemies into overconfidence. Now the galaxy would learn what happened when humans stopped holding back. The storm had broken, and the coalition was drowning in it. 1 week had passed since the human counterattack began. The galaxy was in chaos. Coalition fleets that had controlled vast regions of space were now scattered and broken. Their leaders hid in bunkers while their populations demanded answers. Prime Minister Thokran of the Vextari sat in his emergency command center deep underground on his homeworld. The proud leader who had offered humans the choice between slavery and death now cowered behind thick walls while human ships patrolled the skies above. "Report," he demanded from his remaining military advisors. General Krixnar, one of the few coalition officers to survive the initial attacks, looked at his datapad with shaking hands. 70% of our fleet is destroyed or captured. The humans control all major hyperspace routes. We cannot communicate with our other worlds. How? Thokran roared, his forearms slamming onto the table. They had no ships, no technology. We saw their primitive weapons. They deceived us, General Krixnar replied quietly. For 3 years they let us win battles while they studied us. Every captured ship, every destroyed base, every prisoner we took. It was all part of their plan. Thokran's blue skin turned pale. The species he had mocked as primitives had outplayed the entire coalition military leadership. They had turned apparent defeat into total victory. Above the planet, Captain Hyunwoo Park led a team of human specialists toward the capital city. Their mission was simple but crucial: capture the coalition leaders and force them to face the consequences of their planned genocide. Intelligence indicates Thokran is in the underground complex beneath the government building, reported his second-in-command, Lieutenant Min Ji-song. Heavy defenses, but nothing our new equipment can't handle. Captain Park nodded. His team wore armor that made them nearly invisible to alien sensors. Their weapons could cut through coalition shields like paper. Most importantly, they knew exactly where to go thanks to intelligence gathered during 3 years of careful deception. They moved through the city like ghosts. Coalition security forces tried to stop them, but their old tactics were useless against human technology they had never seen before. Within hours, Captain Park's team reached the government complex. "Breach the underground levels," he ordered. "Time to collect some prisoners." Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian capital world, Admiral Kelnix found himself in a situation he had never imagined. The smooth, calculating leader who had helped plan humanity's destruction was now running for his life through the corridors of his own command center. Human soldiers had infiltrated the building using technology that made their old stealth systems look like children's toys. They knew every passage, every security system, every hiding place. 3 years of intelligence gathering had given them perfect knowledge of coalition facilities. "Sir," called his aide, a young Zephyrian named Plexari, "the humans have breached the command center. They're heading this way." Admiral Kelnix's long neck curved in despair. He had spent his career studying warfare, believing that superior technology and numbers always won. The humans had taught him that intelligence and patience were more powerful than any weapon. "There," said a calm human voice behind them. Commander Tae Young-an stepped out of the shadows with his soldiers. "Admiral Kelnix, you're under arrest for war crimes against humanity." Kelnix turned to face his captors. The humans looked tired, but determined. They had fought a war while pretending to lose, sacrificed their people while planning revenge, endured humiliation while preparing for victory. "You cannot understand," Kelnix said desperately. "We are a superior species. It is natural for us to rule over primitives like you." Commander An looked at the alien leader with something between anger and pity. "Superior? You fell for a 3-year deception. You believed exactly what we wanted you to believe. You planned genocide against innocent people. That doesn't sound very superior to me." The commander activated a holographic display showing the current state of the war. Coalition fleets in retreat. Alien worlds under human control. Leaders captured or killed. The mighty Galactic Empire was crumbling in just 1 week. "How did you know?" Admiral Kelnix whispered. "How did you know we planned to exterminate your species?" "We didn't know at first," An admitted. "But every negotiation, every ceasefire offer, every peace talk told us more about your intentions. You never offered true equality. Always submission. Always control. It became clear that you saw us as animals to be managed, not people to be respected." Dr. Yejin Kwan worked in a laboratory aboard the human flagship, studying intelligence gathered from captured coalition ships. Around her, alien scientists who had defected from their own governments helped analyze the data. "The scale of their planned genocide is worse than we thought," reported Dr. Felnox, a Rigelian biologist who had joined the human cause. "They were planning to use humans for medical experiments, genetic research, and psychological studies." Dr. Kwan looked at the captured documents with growing horror. The coalition hadn't just planned to enslave humanity, they had planned to use them as laboratory animals. Men, women, and children would have been subjected to experiments that would make ancient Earth horrors look merciful. "Why are you helping us?" she asked the alien scientist. Dr. Felnox's tentacles drooped in shame. "Because when I learned what my government planned, I could not remain silent. What they wanted to do to your species was evil. No intelligent being deserves such treatment." More and more alien citizens were learning the truth about the war. The human broadcasts showing coalition war plans had reached every inhabited world. Protests erupted on dozens of planets as populations demanded their leaders explain why they had planned genocide in their name. Colonel Seunghwan Kim used the intelligence provided by defecting aliens to predict coalition military movements. Every time the remaining alien forces tried to regroup, human fleets were waiting for them. Every supply convoy was intercepted. Every escape route was blocked. "They're completely predictable now," he reported to General Choi during a secure communication. "We know their psychology, their tactics, their weaknesses. They can't make a move without us seeing it coming." The coalition military leadership had spent centuries developing their strategies based on fighting other alien species. They had never faced an enemy that combined human unpredictability with detailed knowledge of their own capabilities. It was like playing a card game where the opponent could see all their cards. Admiral Yan Su-o led her fleet to the coalition's central communications hub at Sigma Station. This massive facility controlled information flow across the entire galactic network. Capturing it would give humanity the ability to broadcast the truth to every world in coalition space. "Resistance is lighter than expected," reported her tactical officer. "Most of the defenders have already surrendered." The station's alien crew had watched human forces destroy fleet after fleet of coalition ships. They had seen their supposedly primitive enemies demonstrate technology that seemed like magic. Many had simply given up fighting and were waiting for the inevitable capture. Admiral O walked onto the station's main control deck and looked at the communication systems that had spread coalition propaganda across the galaxy. Soon, these same systems would carry the truth about the war and the planned genocide. "Broadcast on all frequencies," she ordered her communications team. "Every world, every species, every ship in coalition space, let them hear the real story." The broadcast began with captured recordings of coalition leaders discussing their plans for humanity. Prime Minister Thakran talking about using humans as test subjects, Admiral Kelnix planning the distribution of human slaves, military leaders calculating death quotas to keep the human population manageable. Then came the evidence of coalition war crimes: the destroyed colonies, the massacred civilians, the prison camps disguised as relocation centers. The galaxy saw, for the first time, what their leaders had really been doing while claiming to bring peace and order. Finally, the broadcast showed the current state of the war: coalition forces in full retreat, their leaders captured or dead, their mighty fleets reduced to scattered survivors hiding in deep space. "This is what happens," Admiral O announced to the galaxy, "when you mistake patience for weakness and kindness for stupidity. Humanity offered peace. You chose war. Humanity offered cooperation. You chose domination. Now, you face the consequences of those choices." Across coalition space, governments fell as their populations learned the truth. Species that had supported the war against humanity now demanded justice for their leaders' crimes. The galactic empire that had controlled half of known space was tearing itself apart from within. The humans had not just won a military victory. They had exposed the evil at the heart of the coalition and turned the galaxy against its own leadership. The species that had planned genocide were now outcasts, hunted by their former allies and subjects. In just 1 week, the balance of power in the galaxy had completely reversed. The coalition's age of dominance was over. The age of human ascendancy had begun. 3 months had passed since humanity's counterattack began. The galaxy was a very different place now, where once the coalition had ruled through fear and superior technology. A new order was emerging based on justice and cooperation. Ambassador Daeho Kim sat in the same meeting room where he had walked out on the coalition's surrender demands. But now the situation was completely reversed. The same alien leaders who had offered humanity slavery or death were sitting across from him as prisoners and petitioners. Former Prime Minister Thakran looked very different from the proud leader who had mocked humans 3 months ago. His blue skin was pale and his forearms were bound in energy restraints. The Vextari homeworld was under human occupation, and his own people had turned against him when they learned about his planned genocide. "You have to understand," Thakran pleaded, his voice no longer filled with arrogant confidence. "We believed. We were bringing order to the galaxy. We thought primitive species needed guidance." Ambassador Kim looked at the alien leader without sympathy. "You thought wrong. You confused technological advancement with moral superiority. You mistook power for wisdom." Admiral Kelnick sat beside his former ally, equally defeated. The calculating Zephyrian who had helped plan humanity's destruction now faced charges for war crimes. His own species had removed him from power when human broadcasts revealed his true intentions. "How did you know?" he asked quietly. "How did you know we would never accept you as equals?" General Sora Choi, who had planned the entire deception, stood up from her chair. "Because in 3 years of negotiations you never once offered true partnership. Every proposal involved human submission. In some form, you saw us as animals that could be trained, not people who could be respected. The evidence was overwhelming. Captured coalition documents showed detailed plans for human camps, breeding programs, and scientific experiments. The galaxy had seen proof that the coalition leadership viewed other species as resources to be exploited, not partners to work with." President Haiwan Seo addressed a gathering of representatives from across the galaxy. The meeting was held on the same neutral station where the failed peace talks had occurred, but now it had been renamed New Beginning Station to mark the start of a different era. "The old order is dead," President Seo announced to the assembled delegates. "The coalition claimed to bring peace through domination. Instead, they brought oppression and planned genocide. That age is over." In the audience sat representatives from dozens of species. Some had been coalition allies who switched sides when they learned the truth. Others were former coalition subjects who had been freed from oppression. All of them were working together to build something better. "We propose a new kind of galactic government," President Seo continued. "Not based on the strongest species, ruling over the weakest, but on cooperation between equals. Not on fear and submission, but on mutual respect and shared benefits." Captain Jiwoo Park, now promoted to admiral, commanded the new Galactic Defense Force from her flagship Soul's Honor. The fleet included ships and crew from dozens of species, all working together under human leadership. It was a symbol of what the galaxy could become when different peoples worked as partners instead of masters and slaves. "Contact from the Outer Rim territories, Admiral," reported her communications officer, a young Rigelian named Vexilor. "The former coalition mining worlds are requesting assistance with their transition to self-governance." Admiral Park nodded. The humans had discovered that many coalition member worlds had actually been forced into service through military occupation. When the coalition fleet was destroyed, these worlds found themselves free for the first time in generations but lacking the skills to govern themselves. "Send the transition teams," she ordered, "and make sure they understand. We're there to help, not to rule. The moment they can stand on their own, we leave." This was the key difference between human leadership and coalition domination. The humans genuinely wanted to help other species become independent and prosperous. They had no interest in building an empire of slaves. Dr. Min Ho Yoon worked with teams of investigators to uncover the full extent of coalition crimes. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The coalition had been systematically destroying smaller civilizations for centuries, either through direct conquest or by forcing them into economic dependency. 17 species completely extinct, he reported to President Seo. 43. Others reduced to primitive technology and scattered populations. The coalition didn't just rule the galaxy, they actively prevented other species from advancing. The revelation shocked even the humans who had fought the war. They had known the coalition planned genocide against humanity, but learning about centuries of systematic oppression against dozens of other species made their victory feel even more important. Former Admiral Kelnix was forced to watch recordings of human children playing with alien children in the station's common areas. Species that the coalition had kept separate and suspicious of each other were learning to work together under human guidance. Why? He asked Ambassador Kim during one of their meetings. Why do you care about these other species? You could rule them as we did. You have the power. Kim looked at the alien prisoner with something that might have been pity. Because ruling over others is not strength, it's weakness. True strength comes from helping others become strong themselves. A galaxy full of free, prosperous species is better for everyone than an empire of slaves. Engineer Boram Ko had a new job now. Instead of building weapons to fight the coalition, she was leading teams that shared human technology with other species. Advanced medical equipment for worlds ravaged by coalition exploitation. Clean energy systems for planets stripped of resources. Communication networks to help scattered populations reconnect. The Marvin people are asking for help rebuilding their shipyards, her assistant reported. They want to construct vessels for exploration, not war. Boram smiled. The proud Marvin had been one of the first species conquered by the coalition. Their great ships had been melted down for scrap metal and their people scattered across mining colonies. Now they were free to rebuild their civilization. Give them everything they need, she said, and send some of our best engineers to help. It's time the galaxy had more explorers and fewer conquerors. The transformation was happening everywhere. Species that had been enemies for generations were working together on joint projects. Technologies that had been restricted to coalition elites were being shared freely. Worlds that had been strip-mined for resources were being restored to their natural beauty. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some coalition species had benefited from the old system of oppression and resented losing their privileged position. But they found themselves outnumbered by the majority who welcomed freedom and cooperation. Captain Hyun-Soo Lee, now commanding a mixed-species exploration vessel, discovered something remarkable on a world that had been abandoned by the coalition decades earlier. The ruins of an ancient civilization that had been destroyed long before humans ever reached the stars. They were building something, he reported to the research teams. Not weapons or ships, but something else. Knowledge preservation systems, cultural archives. They knew they were going to be destroyed and wanted to save something for the future. The war discovery confirmed what many suspected. The coalition had been systematically destroying advanced civilizations for much longer than anyone realized. They had not been expanding galactic civilization, but limiting it to maintain their own power. Ambassador Kim stood before the assembled representatives one final time. The coalition is finished, he announced. Some of its leaders will face trial for their crimes. Others will be allowed to return to their homeworlds if they accept the new galactic order. But the age of domination and oppression is over forever. He gestured to the viewing ports where ships from dozens of species could be seen working together in space. This is what we offer instead. Not rule by the strong over the weak, but partnership between equals, not exploitation of resources and people, but cooperation for mutual benefit. Not fear and submission, but hope and freedom. The station erupted in applause from dozens of different species. The sound was unlike anything the galaxy had heard before, not the forced cheers of subjects praising their masters, but the genuine celebration of free peoples choosing their own future. President Seo had the final words. Today marks the beginning of a new age, an age where every species has the right to grow and prosper according to their own nature, an age where differences are celebrated, not suppressed, an age where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. She looked out at the representatives of 100 worlds. We humans have learned something important in our short time among the stars. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. There is room for every species to find their own path to greatness. We don't need masters and slaves. We need partners and friends. As the meeting ended, children from dozens of species played together in the station's gardens. Their parents, former enemies brought together by human diplomacy, watched them with hope for the future. The galaxy was healing from centuries of oppression, and a new generation would grow up in freedom.